High Arbiter stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the stars. His ship, the Eternal Dominion, was the pride of the hegemony. It stretched for 3 kilometers and carried enough weapons to crack a moon in half. Behind him floated 200 more warships, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering. Today was a good day. Today, they would add another primitive species to the Galactic Council's growing collection. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. 347 species lived under its protection. Some had joined willingly. Most had not, but that was the way of things. The strong guided the weak. The advanced taught the primitive, and those who refused to learn were removed. Had performed this duty many times. He knew exactly how it would go. His fleet would appear in the sky of some backwater world. The natives would panic. They would fire their crude weapons at his ships. The weapons would do nothing. Then would broadcast his offer, join the Council as a tributary species or face extinction. They always chose to join. His second officer, a tall female named approached him with a data tablet. High Arbiter, we have entered the target system. Long-range sensors show a yellow star, 8 planets, and scattered debris fields. Debris fields raised one of his 4 eyebrows. The natives appear to be mining their asteroid belt. Primitive fusion drives, chemical rockets, nothing of concern. Nodded, primitives indeed. Any military vessels? None detected. We are picking up 3 small ships near the 4th planet, cargo freighters based on their energy signatures. Perfect, said. He clasped his hands behind his back. Open a channel to the freighters. Let us introduce ourselves. The communications officer worked his console. A moment later, a holographic display flickered to life in front of. It showed the interior of a ship, cramped, messy, and filled with strange creatures. Had studied the intelligence reports. The creatures called themselves humans. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and flat faces with small eyes. Their skin came in various shades of brown and pink. They wore simple cloth garments and moved with a strange, loose-limbed grace. The human in the center of the display was female, with dark hair pulled back from her face. She was holding a cup of some steaming liquid and looked annoyed. This is High Arbiter of the Hegemony, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Council, announced in his most impressive voice. Your species has been identified as a candidate for integration. You will surrender your vessels and prepare for diplomatic processing. Resistance will result in immediate termination. This is your only warning. He waited for the fear, the panic, the desperate pleading. The human female took a sip from her cup. Then she looked at someone off screen and said, "Hey Tony, come look at this. We got a telemarketer." A second human appeared, male with pale skin and a growth of hair on his chin. He squinted at the display. "A what now?" "Says he's from some Galactic Council, wants us to surrender." The male human scratched his hairy chin. "Surrender to what?" "I dunno, him I guess." They both looked then they looked at each other. Then, to complete confusion, they started laughing. Felt his scales flush with anger. "This is not a joke, primitives. I command a fleet of 200 warships. Each one is capable of destroying your entire species. You will show proper respect." The female human, a small label on her uniform read Santos, wiped tears from her eyes. "Oh man, oh that's good. Hey, did you hear that? 200 warships." She raised her voice. "Hey everyone, come to the bridge, you gotta see this." More humans appeared. They crowded around the display, pointing and talking in their strange language. One of them was eating something from a bag. Another was wearing clothes covered in cartoon images. None of them looked afraid. "I'm sorry," Santos said, not sounding sorry at all. "Can you repeat that? New frequency, who dis?" I leaned close to, "Sir, I don't understand. The translator is functioning, but—" "I know," growled. "They're not reacting properly." He tried again. "Perhaps you do not understand your situation. My ships have weapons that could vaporize your pathetic vessels in seconds. Your world is defenseless. Your technology is primitive. You have no hope of resistance." Santos took another sip of her drink. "Yeah, so here's the thing, big guy. We're just cargo haulers. We move rocks from one place to another. You want to talk to someone important, you gotta go to Earth. That's the blue-green one, third from the sun." "I am not interested in speaking to your leaders," said. "I am informing you of your surrender." Cool, Santos said, "but no." Blinked all four of his eyes. "What?" "No, we're not surrendering. We got a job to finish. These mining drones aren't gonna deliver themselves. You cannot simply refuse." "Pretty sure I just did." The human with the hairy chin, the label on his uniform said, pushed forward. "Hey, quick question. Those ships of yours, they got any good food? Because our synthesizer's been broken for a week and I'm really tired of protein paste." "This is a military fleet," sputtered, "not a restaurant." "Damn, worth asking though." Another channel opened. A new human face appeared, older, with gray hair and a scar across one cheek. The label read, and her ship was called the Tax Write-Off. "Santos, what's going on? Our sensors are showing a lot of ships out there." "Yeah, Captain, we got some aliens here. They want us to surrender." Looked at the alien fleet on her sensors. Then she looked at, "Surrender to what? Those things." "Those things are the most advanced warships in the galaxy," said through gritted teeth. Didn't seem impressed. "They're pretty, I guess. Lots of smooth lines, very aerodynamic." "We're in space," Santos pointed out. "There's no air." "Exactly," smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "Form over function, classic rookie mistake." Felt something he hadn't felt in centuries, uncertainty. These creatures were facing certain death, and they were critiquing his ship design. A third channel opened. This human was younger, with dark skin and bright eyes full of mischief. His ship was the definitely not smuggling. "Hey, what's everyone talking about? Oh, cool aliens, do they bite?" "We are not animals," snapped. "Neither are we, buddy, but you're the one threatening to eat us." "I never said anything about eating." "You said termination. What do you do with species after you terminate them?" Opened his mouth, then closed it. He had never been asked that question before. The young human grinned. "That's what I thought. Hey Santos, you think these guys know about the Belt Wars?" "Probably not." "Or the unification conflict?" "Doubt it." "Or what happened on Mars?" Santos actually shuddered. "Let's not talk about Mars." Turned to what are they talking about? His second officer was reading her tablet with growing concern. "Sir, I've been accessing their public information networks. Their history is extensive." "Extensive how?" "They appear to have been attempting to kill each other for their entire existence as a species. Wars, famines, plagues, natural disasters. The death tolls are in the billions." Billions, felt his blood chill, and they survived. "They didn't just survive, sir. They thrived. Their population grew. Their technology advanced. Every catastrophe made them stronger." On the display, the humans were still talking among themselves, completely ignoring the massive fleet that had come to conquer them. One of them had started making food. Another was playing some kind of game on a small device. Had conquered dozens of species. He had faced defiance, desperation, and despair. But he had never faced indifference. "Sir," I said quietly, "I think we may have made a mistake." Watched the humans laugh and joke, utterly unafraid of the death that surrounded them. For the first time in his long career, he began to wonder if she was right. "Open a channel to the flagship," he said. "I need to speak with the Council, immediately." The Council's response to his report was simple: demonstrate power. The primitives clearly did not understand what they faced. Once they saw the true might of the Galactic Council, they would submit like every species before them. Was not so sure, but he followed orders. "Target that asteroid," he commanded, pointing to a large rock floating several thousand kilometers away. Full power to the main cannon. The Eternal Dominion hummed with energy. Its primary weapon was a marvel of engineering, a particle beam that could slice through mountains like paper. The Council had used it to end wars, destroy rebellions, and remind lesser species of their place in the universe. The weapon fired. A beam of pure white light lanced across the void and struck the asteroid. The rock didn't just break apart, it vaporized. One moment it was there, the next moment it was nothing but expanding gas and dust. Turn to the communication display with satisfaction. You see, this is what awaits those who defy the Council. Your entire world could suffer the same fate. Now, will you surrender? The humans stared at the empty space where the asteroid had been. Santos tilted her head to the side, scratched his chin. The young one from the Definitely Not Smuggling leaned forward with wide eyes. Then they started clapping. "Oh, nice shot," the young human cheered. "Did you see that? He got it in one hit." "Pretty good," Santos admitted. "Clean vaporization, minimal debris spread. Your targeting must be solid." The beam cohesion was impressive, added from her ship. "What's the energy source? Fusion? Antimatter?" Stood frozen. They were, complementing his weapons, the weapons he had just used to threaten them with extinction. "This is not a performance," he said slowly. "I just destroyed an object the size of a small city." "Yeah, we noticed," Santos said. "So do you have anything bigger?" "Bigger? You know, more powerful. That was a nice asteroid, sure, but it was pretty small. Maybe 2 kilometers across." "That weapon could crack the crust of your planet," said. The humans exchanged glances. Then, to his absolute horror, they started laughing. Real laughter, the kind that made them hold their stomachs and wipe their eyes. "Oh, buddy," Santos said between laughs. "Oh no, did you really come all this way to threaten us with rocks from space?" "I do not understand your reaction," said. "Of course you don't." Santos straightened up, still smiling. "You want to know a secret? About 66 million years ago, a rock about 10 kilometers wide hit our planet, killed almost everything. The dinosaurs, big lizards, very scary, they all died. But you know what survived?" "What?" "Our ancestors, tiny little mammals hiding in holes. They crawled out of the ashes and they took over. That's who we are, alien. We're the children of survivors." Spoke up from her ship. "And that's not even the worst thing that's happened to us. There was the Great Dying 250 million years ago, killed 90% of all life. Volcanic eruptions, acid rain, the whole atmosphere turned poisonous. Life survived that too. Then there were the ice ages," added. "Giant sheets of ice covered our planet. Temperatures dropped so low that water turned to stone. Our ancestors walked across frozen wastelands, hunting animals 3 times their size with pointed sticks." "Pointed sticks?" I asked. "Pointed sticks," confirmed. "We didn't have claws or fangs or armor. We had sticks, rocks, and pure stubbornness." The young human, his name tag said Park, jumped in eagerly. "Oh, and don't forget the plagues. Black Death killed half of Europe. Spanish flu killed 50 million people. And every time we came back, stronger than before." Felt sick. His species had evolved on a paradise world with stable climate and abundant food. They had never faced true hardship. Most council species were the same. Life developed best on gentle worlds with few dangers. But Earth was not a gentle world. Earth was a death trap, and these creatures had crawled out of it anyway. "You're looking at this wrong," Santos said, her voice softer now. "You think threatening us with destruction will make us afraid. But buddy, we've been facing destruction since before we climbed down from the trees. Predators tried to eat us. We ate them back. Diseases tried to kill us. We invented medicine. The planet tried to freeze us and burn us and drown us. We're still here." She leaned forward and there was no humor in her eyes anymore. "You know what the deadliest thing on our planet is? Us. We spent thousands of years killing each other in wars so brutal your translators probably can't process them. We invented weapons that could destroy our entire species. We came this close. She held up 2 fingers almost touching to ending ourselves. Twice. And you're proud of this? Asked. No, we're not proud, but we learned from it. We looked at the fire we'd created and we said, never again. We put down our weapons, we united, we reached for the stars. She paused. And now here we are. 3 cargo ships facing 200 warships. And you know what? I still like our odds. Turn 2. Pull up everything you can find on human history, military history specifically. It took several minutes for her to compile the data. When she finished, her scales had turned pale. She handed the tablet to Without speaking. He read about something called World War I, where millions died in muddy trenches fighting over meters of ground. He read about World War II, where cities were burned and atoms were split and 60 million people perished. He read about the Cold War, where 2 nations held the power to end all life on Earth and stared at each other for 50 years, neither willing to back down. He read about Stalingrad, where humans fought building by building in frozen ruins. He read about Thermopylae, where 300 soldiers held a pass against an army of thousands. He read about a place called Vietnam, where farmers with simple weapons defeated the most powerful military on their planet. They're insane, he whispered. No, sir, I said. I think they're survivors. Their entire history is a record of impossible situations and impossible victories. They don't know how to surrender. On the display, Santos was waiting patiently. You done reading about us yet? Looked up, how did you know? Lucky guess. You've got that look. Everyone gets that look when they learn about the world wars. I don't understand, said slowly. Your species has every reason to hate itself. You've caused yourselves more suffering than any outside enemy could. And yet we keep going, Santos finished. Yeah, that's the human special power. We're too stubborn to die, too stupid to know when we're beaten. You can knock us down 100 times and we'll get up 101. The Council has never lost a conflict, said. Our technology is superior. Our numbers are overwhelming. Maybe, Santos said. But here's the thing about humans. We don't need to win. We just need to make winning cost more than it's worth. You could probably destroy Earth. You could kill most of us, but you wouldn't get all of us. And the survivors, they'd spend the next 1,000 years making you regret it. She smiled again, and this time it was almost friendly. We're persistent like that. Sat down heavily. His legs felt weak. He had come here expecting a simple conquest, and instead he had found something entirely outside his experience. A species that didn't fear death because they had been dancing with it since birth. A species that could look at overwhelming force and laugh. I need to report to the Council, he said quietly, and I need to recommend reconsideration. Take your time, Santos said. We're not going anywhere, we've got rocks to haul. The display flickered off, stared at the empty space where the human had been. Sir, I asked, what do we do? We wait, said, and we pray to whatever gods will listen that the Council chooses wisdom over pride. He had a terrible feeling they wouldn't. 3 days passed. The Council's response to his concerns was disappointing but not surprising. They ordered him to proceed with the integration. If the humans would not surrender peacefully, they would be made to surrender by force. Prepared his fleet for the advance toward Earth. 200 ships moved through the void in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. The cargo freighters had disappeared hours ago, running back toward their home world. Almost felt sorry for them. They had been brave in their strange way, but bravery would not save them from the might of the Galactic Council. Sir, I said, we're approaching the 4th planet. Long-range sensors are detecting something. Define something. I can't, sir. There's a large energy signature ahead, but our sensors can't identify it. It's unlike anything in our database. Frowned on screen. The main display shifted to show the space ahead. At first, saw nothing unusual, just the red planet the humans called Mars and the blackness of space beyond. Then the blackness moved. Ships emerged from behind Mars, human ships, but these were nothing like the cargo freighters had encountered before. These vessels were massive, angular, and covered in weapons. Where Council ships were smooth and elegant, these things were brutal. Sharp edges, exposed armor plating, gun batteries bristling from every surface. They looked like predators. They looked like war itself given form. "Count them," ordered, his voice barely steady. 47 ships, sir. 12 large capital ships, 20 medium cruisers, 15 smaller vessels. Only 47, allowed himself a moment of relief. We outnumber them 4-1. Yes, sir, but, hesitated. Sir, I'm reading their energy signatures, their weapons. They're not like anything we've seen. A communication channel opened. A human face appeared, male, middle-aged, with a stern expression and cold eyes. He wore a crisp uniform covered in medals and symbols. "This is Admiral James of the Sol Defense Fleet," the human said. "You have entered restricted space. You will halt your advance and identify your intentions." Straightened. "I am High Arbiter of the Hegemony, representing the Galactic Council. We are here to complete the integration of your species." "Integration?" Admiral's voice was flat. "You mean conquest?" "The Council prefers the term integration. It sounds more civilized." "I'm sure it does." The Admiral's eyes swept across something off-screen, probably his own sensor readings. "High Arbiter, I'm going to give you one chance to reconsider. Turn your fleet around and leave our system. We have no quarrel with the Council, but we will not be conquered." "Your resistance is futile," said, falling back on the traditional script. "Our forces are superior in every way." "Are they?" Admiral smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. "Let me show you something." The display split to show a tactical map. Fleet was represented by blue dots. The human fleet was red. As he watched, more red dots appeared behind his fleet, above it, below it, ships emerging from nowhere. "Stealth technology," explained. "We've been watching you since you entered our system. Those cargo freighters you met, they were scouts. We wanted to see how you would react, what you would do, what you were capable of." "Felt cold, you were testing us." "We were learning about you, and now we know enough." Leaned forward. "You see, High Arbiter, we've been preparing for this moment for 50 years, ever since we found your probe drifting through our outer system. We took it apart. We studied it. We learned everything we could about your council." "That's impossible. That probe was heavily encrypted." "It was for about 6 months." Smile widened. "We're very good at breaking things." Looked at the tactical display again. The human ships had his fleet completely surrounded. He hadn't even known they were there. "Your weapons," he said slowly, "what are they? Would you like a demonstration?" Before could answer, one of the human ships fired. A bolt of energy crossed the void and struck a small Council scout ship. The scout didn't just take damage, it ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next it was an expanding cloud of atoms. "Plasma cannons," said calmly. "We took your particle beam technology and improved it, added some of our own innovations. The result is effective." I was reading damage reports with trembling hands. "Sir, the scout ship is gone. No survivors, no debris larger than a molecule. The weapon burned through their shields like they weren't there." Stared at the empty space where the scout had been. His ship had the most advanced shields in the Council fleet, and the humans had just demonstrated a weapon that ignored them completely. "That was a warning shot," continued. "The next one won't be. Now I'm going to ask you again, will you leave our system peacefully?" His mind raced. His fleet was surrounded. The humans had weapons he couldn't defend against, and somehow, despite being outnumbered, they seemed completely confident. He remembered what Santos had said about humans. They make winning cost more than it's worth. "I need to consult with the Council," he said finally. "You have 1 hour." The communication ended. Stood in silence, surrounded by his officers, all of them waiting for him to make a decision that could change the fate of their species. "Sir," I said quietly, "there's something else." "What now?" "I've been analyzing their ship designs. They have no escape pods." "No escape pods? That's insane. How do their crews evacuate?" "They don't, sir. I've checked 3 times. Their ships are designed without any means of escape. Their crews go into battle knowing that if their ship dies, they die with it." Felt the last of his confidence drain away. What kind of species built ships without escape pods? What kind of soldiers would serve on them? Fanatics. Creatures who had looked at death so many times that they no longer feared it. "They named their ships," continued, her voice shaking. "I found their fleet registry. Their largest vessel is called Spite. The others are named Grudge, Vendetta, Reckoning, No Mercy, and Terrible Idea." "Terrible Idea?" "I believe it's meant to be humorous, sir." "There is nothing humorous about this situation." Walked to the main display and looked at the human fleet. 47 ships against 200. By every calculation, the Council should win easily. They had more ships, more firepower, more experience. But the humans had something else. They had weapons that could kill with a single shot. They had stealth technology that made his sensors useless. They had ships built for victory or death, with no middle ground. And they had thousands of years of evolution that had turned them into the most stubborn, dangerous, and unpredictable creatures in the galaxy. "Open a channel to the Council," ordered. "Priority 1, tell them we have a problem." While he waited for the response, music began playing over an open channel. Human music. It was strange and beautiful and terrible all at once, strings and brass and drums building to a thunderous climax. "What is that sound?" I asked. "I don't know." Listened to the rising melody, feeling something deep in his chest that he couldn't name. "But I don't think it's a surrender song." He was right. The music was called Ride of the Valkyries. And in human culture, it only meant one thing. War was coming. The war never happened. Not because the Council chose peace, but because they chose survival. When sent his report, complete with sensor data, weapon analysis, and his own terrified assessment, the Council elders watched in silence. They saw the scout ship vaporized in an instant. They saw the tactical map showing human ships everywhere. They saw the names of those ships and understood what they meant. The Council had ruled the galaxy through strength, but strength only worked against enemies who could be frightened, and these humans did not frighten. So instead of war, there would be negotiation. The Council sent word. They would meet with humanity's leaders. They would discuss terms, and whether he wanted to or not would lead the delegation. 1 week later, he found himself on Earth. The shuttle descended through white clouds and blue sky toward a city the humans called Geneva, pressed his face against the window like a child, unable to help himself. He had seen many worlds, but never one quite like this. Earth was beautiful, mountains and oceans, forests and deserts, all swirling together in patterns of green and brown and blue. And everywhere, there were signs of the creatures who lived here. Cities sprawled across the land. Lights glittered at night. Ships moved through the skies and across the seas. This was no primitive world. This was a civilization in full bloom. "Sir," I said from beside him, "I've been reading their network again. The things they've accomplished." "Tell me." "They walked on their moon 60 years ago, using chemical rockets and computers less powerful than our children's toys. They did it just to prove they could." Shook his head in disbelief. "Chemical rockets to cross a vacuum." "It gets better. They built a station in orbit. They sent probes to every planet in their system. They drove vehicles on Mars. They landed a probe on a comet, sir, moving at thousands of kilometers per second, and they rode it around their sun." "Why?" "Because no one had ever done it before." The shuttle landed in a wide plaza surrounded by ancient buildings. stepped out and took his first breath of Earth air. It was thick and warm and smelled of growing things. Alien, but not unpleasant. A delegation was waiting for them. Recognized Admiral still wearing that cold smile. Beside him stood a woman in formal clothes with gray hair and sharp eyes. And next to her, grinning like she owned the planet, was Captain Maria Santos. "Welcome to Earth, High Arbiter," the gray-haired woman said. "I'm Secretary General. We're pleased you accepted our invitation." "I had little choice," admitted. "Your Admiral made the alternative quite clear." "He can be persuasive." Smile was warm, but her eyes remained calculating. "Please come inside. We have much to discuss." They entered a grand building filled with art and light. Found himself stopping every few steps to stare at something new. Paintings that captured emotion with simple strokes of color. Sculptures that seemed to move even while standing still. Music floating through the halls, beautiful and strange. "You appreciate our art," Santos said, appearing at his elbow. "I don't understand it," admitted. "But yes, there is something powerful here." "That's the thing about humans," Santos said. "We don't just survive, we create, we dream. We build beautiful things even when the world is falling apart around us, maybe especially then." They reached a conference room where more humans waited. Politicians, military officers, scientists, diplomats. They all watched as and his delegation took their seats. The negotiations began. Presented the Council's offer: tributary status, technology sharing, protection from external threats. The same offer given to every new species for 12,000 years. Secretary General listened politely. Then she pushed a data tablet across the table. "Here is our counteroffer." Read it, then he read it again, his scales flushed with shock. You can't be serious." "We are completely serious. You're demanding full membership in the Council, equal voting rights, a seat on the High Assembly." "That's correct. No new species has ever. There's a first time for everything." Looked at the other demands. Mutual defense treaties, technology exchange, not sharing exchange, meaning the Council would give as much as they received. And most shocking of all, an amendment to Council law banning forced integration of developing species. "You want to change laws that have stood for," said. "Yes." "Why? You're not a developing species. This law wouldn't affect you." Leaned forward. "Because it's wrong. We've been watching your communications for decades, High Arbiter. We know what integration really means. We know about the who were given a choice between surrender and extinction. We know about the whose was sterilized when they refused to submit. We know about the 12 species who've been integrated in the last century alone." Felt cold. "That information is classified." "Not anymore." His voice was hard as steel. "You came here thinking you'd found another victim, another primitive species to add to your collection, but we're not victims, High Arbiter, and we don't collect species, we free them. The Council will never agree to these terms." "Then there will be war." Admiral spoke for the first time, "and we both know how that will end." Wanted to argue, wanted to point out that the Council had millions of ships, thousands of years of experience, resources beyond counting. Humanity was one species on one world. But he remembered the scout ship. He remembered the plasma cannons. He remembered the stealth technology and the ships named Spite and Grudge. And he remembered what Santos had told him: "We don't need to win. We just need to make winning cost more than it's worth." "You would risk everything," he said slowly. "Your entire species, for strangers you've never met." "Yes," said simply. "Why?" Santos answered. "Because someone has to. Because if we don't stand up, no one will. Because every species in your Council was once where we are now, small, vulnerable, alone. They were given a choice between slavery and death, and they chose slavery. We're choosing something different." "What are you choosing?" Santos smiled. "Hope." The room fell silent. looked at the humans around the table, soldiers and scientists, politicians and pilots. They were so different from each other, yet united in something he couldn't quite name. Then he understood. These creatures had spent their entire history fighting each other. Wars, famines, plagues, disasters. They had done terrible things to themselves, but they had also learned something from that pain. They had learned that the only way forward was together, that no one was truly free until everyone was free. The Council had never produced a species like this, could never have produced them. It took something special, something forged in fire and suffering and stubborn refusal to die to create beings who would risk everything for strangers. Made his decision. "I will take your proposal to the Council," he said, "and I will recommend they accept it." Blinked, "You will. Don't misunderstand me. They will probably refuse, but I will make the recommendation, because you're right." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "The Council has forgotten what it was supposed to be. We were meant to guide, not conquer, to protect, not threaten. Somewhere along the way, we lost ourselves." He looked at Santos. "Perhaps you can help us find our way again." Santos raised an eyebrow. "Is that an official diplomatic statement?" "It's a personal one, Stood. Now I believe we have documents to draft, and I could use something to drink, something strong." "I know just the thing," Santos said, grinning. "Have you ever tried whiskey?" Hadn't. But by the end of the night, he had tried whiskey, something called pizza, and a strange performance where humans pretended to be other humans on a stage. It was all very confusing and entirely wonderful. And in the morning, with a strange pain in his head that Santos called a hangover, he began the long process of changing the galaxy. 1 year later, the galaxy was a different place. Stood in the great chamber of Nexus Prime, watching history unfold. The council hall was enormous, a floating sphere of crystal and light that held representatives from 347 species. Today, it would hold 348. The vote had been closer than he'd hoped. For months, he had argued and pleaded and threatened. He had shown the council what humanity was capable of. He had reminded them of their own history, of the time before they became conquerors. And when words failed, he had simply pointed to Earth's fleet and asked if they really wanted to fight. In the end, 298 species voted yes, 49 voted no. Humanity would join the Galactic Council as full members. But that wasn't the real victory. The real victory was the message that spread across the galaxy in the weeks that followed. The story of 3 cargo ships laughing at a battle fleet. The story of a species that refused to surrender. The story of humans who were willing to risk everything, not for themselves but for others. Small species heard that story, tributary species. The ones who had submitted because they had no choice, and for the first time in thousands of years, they began to hope. Watched the human delegation enter the chamber. Ambassador Maria Santos, yes, the same Santos, promoted from cargo captain to humanity's voice on the galactic stage, walked at the front. She wore formal clothes now instead of a jumpsuit, but her eyes still held that same spark of mischief. She caught his gaze and winked. Tried to look dignified, he failed. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. Santos spoke the ancient words of membership, promising to uphold the laws of the council and work for the good of all species. Then she added something no new member had ever added. And humanity further promises this. We will stand for those who cannot stand alone. We will speak for those whose voices have been silenced. We will fight for those who have forgotten how to fight. From this day forward, no species will face the darkness alone, because that's what it means to be human. The chamber fell silent. Then from somewhere in the crowd, a single delegate began to applaud. Others joined. Soon the entire hall was thundering with approval. The smaller species, the tributaries, the conquered and the forgot, they were cheering. In the months that followed, humanity proved that Santos's words were not empty promises. Human ships began patrolling the borders of tributary worlds, not as conquerors but as guardians. When a governor tried to increase tribute payments on a small colony, human diplomats appeared to negotiate a fairer deal. When a distant species faced a plague they couldn't cure, human doctors arrived with medicine and expertise. And when the remnant, survivors of a species the Council had nearly destroyed, asked for help rebuilding their world, humanity said yes without hesitation. "Why do you help us?" the elder asked the human team that arrived on their planet. "We are strangers to you. We have nothing to offer." The team leader, a young woman named Doctor, smiled. "Because helping people isn't about what they can offer, it's about what's right." They didn't understand, but they accepted the help anyway, and slowly their world began to heal. Back on Nexus, Prime found himself spending more time with humans than with his own species. He had requested the position of humanity's liaison to the Council, though he would never admit it had been a request rather than an assignment. The truth was simpler. He had become fascinated by these strange, impossible creatures. One evening, he sat with Santos in a quiet garden on the station. She was drinking something she called coffee, a dark, bitter liquid that she consumed in alarming quantities. He was trying something called tea, which was much gentler on his digestive system. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "You just did, but sure, go ahead." "If we had attacked Earth, would you really have fought to the end, all of you?" Santos was quiet for a moment. She stared into her coffee as if it held the answers to the universe. "Let me tell you a story," she said. "About 2,500 years ago, there was a place called Thermopylae, a narrow pass between mountains and sea. An army of 1,000,000 soldiers was coming to conquer a small nation called Greece, and standing in their way were 300 warriors from a city called Sparta." 300 against 1,000,000, shook his head. "That's suicide." "That's the point. The Spartans knew they couldn't win. They knew they would die. They went anyway. They held that pass for 3 days, and when they finally fell, they had bought enough time for the rest of Greece to prepare." Did Greece survive? It did, because of those 300, because they showed that some things are worth dying for. Santos looked up at the stars visible through the garden's transparent ceiling. "That's who we are. We're the species that runs toward danger instead of away from it. We're the ones who fight impossible battles because someone has to. We're the ones who will die on our feet rather than live on our knees." She smiled, and there was something ancient in her eyes. "So yes, if you had attacked Earth we would have fought. Not because we thought we could win, but because surrender was never an option. And maybe we would have lost, but you would have lost too. The entire galaxy would have learned that the Council could be hurt, could bleed, and eventually someone else would have finished what we started." Believed her, that was the terrifying part. He absolutely believed her. "You humans are insane," he said. "Probably," Santos agreed. "But we're insane in the best way. We're insane enough to think we can make things better, insane enough to try even when it's hopeless, insane enough to care about strangers we've never met." She raised her coffee cup in a toast. "Here's to insanity." Raised his tea, "To insanity." They drank together as the stars wheeled overhead. Far across the galaxy, on a world that had never known visitors from space, a young creature looked up at the night sky and wondered if anyone else was out there. She had been taught that the universe was cold and empty, that her people were alone in the darkness. Then her radio crackled with a strange signal, a transmission from beyond her world. The signal carried a simple message, translated into every known language and broadcast in every direction. It was a message that had started on Earth and spread across the stars, carried by human ships to every corner of the galaxy. The message said, "You are not alone, you don't have to be afraid, we're coming." And somewhere in the depths of space, a battered cargo ship named the Rusty Venture cruised toward the unknown. At its helm sat a woman who had once laughed at a battle fleet. She was still laughing, still flying, still reaching for stars that should have been impossible to touch. Behind her flew 1,000 more ships, human and alien, military and civilian, united by something stronger than fear. They called themselves the Santos Fleet, though Santos herself hated the name. They flew the banner of the human alliance, but their mission was bigger than any one species. They were hope, given wings and engines and plasma cannons. They were humanity's gift to the galaxy. And they were just getting started.